Good afternoon. Thank you for being here today as we dedicate this room to Utah's first female attorney, Cora Georgiana Snow Carleton, and honor her extraordinary life and legacy. My name is Britt Merrill. I was admitted to the Utah State Bar in 2016. That's 140 years after Cora was admitted to the bar. I serve as historian for Women Lawyers of Utah. So today I'll provide some brief remarks about Cora's life, and then we'll hear from Nylan McBain, CEO of Better Days Utah 2020, Joni Jones, Assistant Attorney General, and Attorney General Sean Reyes. As many of you know, the Utah Territory was settled by Mormon pioneers who trekked across the Great Plains and the Rocky Mountains in search of a new home. Families pushed handcarts, they drove covered wagons carrying their children and all their worldly goods. It was a treacherous journey and many died, especially the men. So upon arriving in the Salt Lake Valley in 1847, the ratio of women to men among the survivors was staggeringly high. The skills, talents, intellect, and resilience of every pioneer, regardless of gender, was essential to the success of this grand adventure. To build a new civil society, women were critical in every facet of civic life. The Utah Territory was the second place on the continent to give women the right to vote in 1870, even though we were the first to cast a ballot, which I just learned. Let's see. Oh, I'm missing a page. Oh, that's okay. It's on there. Sorry. So, and incredibly, this victory of casting the first ballot was achieved with remarkably little controversy, stunning suffragists on the East Coast who were facing persistent resistance. Similarly, Utah was the first state to grant women the right to serve on juries, and women were given the right to hold public office as part of the new Utah State Constitution in 1896. And Utah was the fourth state to admit women to the bar. Cora Georgiana Snow Carleton and Phoebe Wilson Cousins were the first two women admitted to the Utah bar in 1872, and they were admitted on the very same day. Carleton was born in Canton, Ohio in 1844, and she traveled to Utah by wagon when she was just 8 years old. She was the oldest of 7 children in a large Mormon family. She studied law from her father, Zerubbabel Snow, who was an attorney in Salt Lake City, the Attorney General for Utah Territory, and later an Associate Justice of the Utah Supreme Court. Cora was introduced to the court as the most estimable young lady by Major Charles H. Hempstead. During the court proceedings, Judge McKean remarked, "The legal profession may be made even more honorable by the admission of women to the bar. It strikes us as a novelty, gentlemen, but everything in the line of progress is, at some time or other, a novelty. I very cheerfully admit Miss Cousins and Miss Carleton to this bar, and gentlemen, I present to you our sisters at the bar." Phoebe Cousins, who was from St. Louis, Missouri, was admitted to the bar in Missouri in 1971 and later to the bars of Arkansas and Kansas. However, Cousins never lived in Utah. Cora, on the other hand, remained in Utah for the majority of her life. While she did not practice law, Cora remained active in legal, political, and intellectual pursuits. Among her many accomplishments, Cora was elected notary public by the Utah legislature in 1874. She served as Secretary Pro Tem of the Equal Suffrage Memorial Committee in Utah. She was a founding member of both the Ladies Literary Club in Salt Lake City and the Intermountain Library, and she was nominated by the governor to serve as the territorial librarian. She had an incredible life. After Cora was admitted to the bar in 1872, it took over 100 years until the 100th female attorney was admitted in 1976. Nearly 150 years have passed since Cora was first admitted to the bar, and today women make up less than a quarter of the bar. We've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go in making sure that people have access to justice and access to the legal profession. On behalf of Women Lawyers of Utah, I want to thank Better Days 2020, the Attorney General's Office, Sean Reyes and Sarah Starkey for coming up with this idea, hatched during a chance encounter in Washington, D.C., and thank you for recognizing women in public spaces. We'll now turn the time over to Nylan McBain from Better Days Utah 2020.
Hello, my name is Nylan McBain, and I am the co-founder and CEO of Better Days 2020. We are a nonprofit here in Utah dedicated to popularizing Utah women's history in preparation for the year 2020, which has been mentioned marks the 150th anniversary of Utah being the first place a woman cast a ballot under equal suffrage laws in this nation. And of course, it also marks the 20th the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment passed in 1920. This date particularly is significant because it marks the week that Utah ratified the 19th Amendment, so we're especially grateful to be here at this time. But I would like to direct my comments to the importance of naming and seeing women from history in public spaces. One of the missions of Better Days 2020 has been to create public art, or both in sculpture, memorials, in illustrations, in children's books, in posters, in materials that we're able to give to classrooms and put in homes. And one of the purposes of this is so that we can flood our culture with images and names of women from our past. When you stop to look at the role of men visually in our visual culture, it's staggering to look at the imbalance of how many men are named or represented in our public art versus women. And that is important because our public art represents the values of our community. And when we don't have women named and represented visually or honored through their names, it suggests a value system that does not place them on the same level with men. We are in the process of rectifying this, and things like this, dedication of this conference room, having Cora Georgiana Snow Carleton's name on this room for everyone to see is an important step in making sure that women are seen and heard and honored in our public art and in our memorials. So we're very grateful as Better Days 2020 to be a part of this today, and thank the Attorney General and Utah Women Lawyers for having us.
Counsel?
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Joni Jones. I'm an Assistant Attorney General, and I'm the head of the litigation division here in the Attorney General's office. And I'm just so pleased at the project of putting women's names and arts out in public spaces. I think that that's so important. I wanted to talk a little bit about inspiring young women to become involved in the law. And thinking about that, of course, it's remarkable that Georgiana Snow in 1872 could think of herself or see herself as being a lawyer and being admitted into the legal profession, because, of course, at that time, in most of the country, of course, women couldn't vote. In most of the country, they couldn't sign a contract, they couldn't write a contract, they couldn't own property. So you think about, how did she envision herself as becoming a lawyer? As was mentioned, her father was a lawyer, and obviously her father must have been a very important mentor to her. You know, he, as was mentioned, practiced on the Supreme Court and was the Attorney General for the Utah Territory. And Georgia, as I understand she liked to be called, Georgia studied with him for 3 years and was his law clerk before she actually took the bar. And for many young women, I think, being able to see yourself as a lawyer is important, and it's often a kind of barrier to break through. I didn't actually go to law school and myself until I was 32. It took me a long time to get up the nerve to think that I could actually be a lawyer. I didn't know any lawyers when I was growing up. I thought of lawyers as, men in three-piece suit who were power brokers, and I'm in heels right now, but I think I'm about 5'2". Maybe I used to be 5'3". So I'm this, myself as this sort of tiny woman. I didn't ever think of myself as being a lawyer. In fact, when I finished high school, I didn't go to college. I worked for an insurance company. And I had a job where, remember in the old days where there was a lot of mail, I had the shopping basket that I would take to the different floors to gather the mail. And I would go up and see the different employees in the building. And the women mostly were in administrative assistant roles. And so I thought what I wanted to do was be an executive secretary. So that looked like to me the best job. And so I went to night school to learn how to do shorthand. And that's what I was interested in for a time. And I ultimately decided to go to college. But as I said, it took me a long time to be able to see myself as being a lawyer. And that's one of the things that we want to help young women do, is to be able to see that they could be lawyers too if they want to. So I was reading recently an article about the 15-year anniversary of Legally Blonde, which I just thought was kind of a light, funny movie. But the thing that was interesting about that article, it was an online article, and it included a lot of social media tweets and statements from women about how that movie inspired them to become lawyers when they didn't think they otherwise would have done that. And I'd certainly never thought of that movie that way, but then I realized, they sort of got that right? Sort of cracking the stereotype of what a lawyer is. So, we ask ourselves, what can we do to inspire young women to become lawyers? There are lots of small and bigger things that we can do. Visit your child's school on career day for us women lawyers, right? Let them see that women can certainly be lawyers too. Also, I know in the 5th or 6th grade, the schools focus on government, and that was a time when I was a little involved in that with my kids' class, and I invited Judge Ruby Mills to come speak. She had just been appointed a judge, and she just came in her regular clothes, but then she brought her robe with her, and she answered questions. She was very down to earth. The kids were really inspired by that. That's a small thing, but I think that those kinds of things matter. I was just reading the other day that West High School started an African American Young Women's Support Club. That would be a great club for women lawyers, Minority Bar of Utah, to address and let them see that they can be lawyers too. And then there are other things that are important too, I think, in helping women to be successful. There are more women, of course, going to law school today. You may know that 2017 was the first year that saw nationwide a majority of women over men going to law school. At the U, that's about 53% women, and BYU's 42%. So we're making strides certainly in that area. But still, only 20% of the partners in major law firms are women. So we need to do more to promote women in their professions as well. There's no question, as I mentioned earlier, that Georgia Snow's powerful father as a lawyer, attorney general, and judge had a big impact on her becoming a lawyer. And likewise now, those in power need to promote and mentor and support women. And I'm so grateful, General Reyes, for what you've done. And part of it, of course, is dedicating this conference room. And the rest of us, the men and women in power, need to recognize, promote, and support women and continue to encourage women to become attorneys and contribute to the profession.
Thank you so much, Joni, Nylan, Britt. I certainly can't say any more eloquently what you have all expressed, but I want to offer a few observations and thanks to you. Being raised by a powerful, determined tiger mom who herself was the daughter of a very pioneering, independent-minded Native Hawaiian mother, and growing up in a culture, the Polynesian culture, that is dominated by women leaders making day-to-day decisions that are important for the community. I am very comfortable being surrounded by amazing, brilliant women leaders. And that's no exception today. I'm honored to have you all here and have you come from out of state. Those of you working on this incredible grassroots empowerment movement, Better Days 2020, thank you for doing that, to Nyland and all of your team. To have a judge of such repute and respect, Judge Michelle Maladajovsky here.
Thank you.
From Utah Court of Appeals. Still, I mean, we haven't yet gotten you to the United States Supreme Court, but we're working on that, on our way. Sarah Starkey, who runs the legal division, general counsel for one of the largest and most prominent Utah companies. Britt, who's again you've heard from, and one of Britt is the historian of the women lawyers. Who I just want to throw in a gratuitous plug for women lawyers. If you're not a member of women lawyers, you don't have to be a woman. I was a member of women lawyers for a number of years, and it is such a good organization that does so much positive for our community, focusing on nurturing the current and next generation of women lawyers and recognizing the contributions of past women lawyers. But Joni Jones, you just heard from her. She is one of the best leaders that we have in our office, and runs the largest division. If it's not, it's close to being the largest in our office. Of the 17 divisions and 53 sections that we have, to have Chief Jones here overseeing our litigation efforts at the state is inspirational, and also a comfort to me, knowing that our litigation is in such good hands. With that, I want to add something about the room itself, because as been alluded to, this is a project that's been like 5 years in the making. We decided 5 years ago, Sarah and I had concocted a way to, again, promote the efforts and the advancements of women in law and business and in life. We said, everything's named after guys up at the Capitol. There's all these different... Let's name something. And I said, yeah, let's do that. And then realized we don't have a lot left to name up here. And so we looked inside our own office. And while some of you may look at the Snow Carleton conference room and say, it's kind of small, I think it's quaint, it's well appointed, but I will say two things. It is the largest conference room that we have here. And so it was the most that the Attorney General's office could offer up here on Capitol Hill. If the Capitol Preservation Board legislature want to give us more, we'll happily name more rooms after amazing women. Secondly, you can't really judge the impact of something by its size or its appearance. And to me, symbolically, although some of you might think this is cheesy, this is a small conference room, but some of the most important and critical decisions affecting our state are made in that conference room. Not because we in the AG's office are there, but where the real power brokers come in, decisions are made there. And I think that is anecdotal, in a way, symbolic of the role of some of these pioneering women. They may have been diminutive in size. They may not have had long resumes of accomplishments, but what they were able to do and the impact and influence that they have resonates for generations, and we can still feel that now. And that's part of the reason why we do this, is to continue that legacy going forward and learn from the strength of women in our history to perpetuate that power forward on into future generations. I'm glad Joni mentioned, and others, the influence of men in the process, because certainly we've had for too long a history of men acting as superiors and exerting power over women. And we together, and what this represents is hopefully our male counterparts, our men being supporters and empowering women instead. I think that it's probably about time for me to read the written remarks, because my team's getting a little nervous and they want me to just get to the ribbon cutting. But I really do, from deep down, want to thank everyone who has helped make this possible. This actual cutting and dedication officially today is taking place many years after we had initiated the thought, but it's very appropriate to be a part of the Better Days 2020 movement And it's never too late to recognize the contributions of strong, powerful women leaders. And we throw out a challenge to other organizations, other institutions, as small as the family, all the way to the largest businesses and political organizations like the courts, to try to do similar things. Think of ways to promote the contributions of women yesterday, today, and hopefully forever into the future in the state of Utah. So with that, I think Georgia or Cora, I don't know. I've heard differing accounts of what she preferred. She's not here to verify. But I think she would be pleased to know that in a little way, her courage stepping forward is being used as a symbol today to inspire and hopefully motivate other women and men to similarly be courageous and advance and empower women throughout the world. So with that, I don't have an official dedicatory statement like an oath of office. We as men and women are better 147 years later because of the courageous and steadfast actions of this young lady who learned the law at the feet of her father, the territorial attorney general. We think it's appropriate that this attorney general conference room be named after her, and by the power vested in me as the state attorney general, we hereby on this, what day is it again today? The second day of October 2019. Dedicate this conference room here at the beautiful state capitol in the great state of Utah in the name of Cora Georgiana Snow Carleton, and to all the women before her and who have come after her and who will continue to build on their legacy of accomplishment, of courage, of power, and of love for the state of Utah. And so with that, this room and with the scissors, I'll invite anybody else want to come stand. Sarah, you hash
Okay,
this
we're
one.
going to do this together? Do I get like one
You
side
get one
of
side.
it? Okay. Okay,
We're
hold on.
going to do this. Gail will be proud.
Okay. She's a much better ribbon cutter than I am.
She's had a lot of practice with mentioning Gail Miller. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. 1, 2, 3. We just got to pose. Of course, we have the blunt scissors here. And here.
I think they're ceremonial in nature here. Hold on.
Here, you know what? I'll do this.
Yeah, there
You
you go.
cut, and I'm going to make it like taut.
Okay,
It's
there you
gonna,
go.
and it's gonna.
Oh, wait, we've got one
Yep.
here.
All right.
There.
Yes.
Yay.